They'll dress it up, polish it, put a little bow on it, and call it a date. August 23rd, Saturday. Like it's supposed to mean something. Like it's the day everything changes. Like it's some holy number stamped on the calendar. But that's how traps are built. Not with chains, not with bars, but with promises. They want you to look at that day and believe it's the finish line, the breakthrough, the moment the universe hands you everything. And the more you believe, the easier it is to control you. A date is nothing but ink on paper. But if they can convince you, it carries weight. They've already got you in the cage. Dates don't carry power, actions do. But isn't it fascinating how easily people give away their strength to a number printed on a page? A little square on a calendar, a mark circled in red ink, and suddenly they start to treat it like it's holy. They whisper about it, wait for it, rearrange their lives around it, as if a date is some magical door that swings open and changes everything. But here's the cruel joke: the date does nothing. Midnight strikes, the clock resets, and nothing changes except your disappointment, because you were sitting, waiting, believing in a moment instead of making one. Think about it. How many times have people said, "When the new year comes, I'll start over. When my birthday arrives, I'll become different. When that one day shows up, I'll finally change." And what happens? The day comes, it passes, and they're still the same. The only thing that changed was the number on the calendar. But people like to believe in it because it's easier. It's easier to pin your hopes on a day than to admit the ugly truth that nothing happens until you make it happen. A date doesn't get up and fight for you. A date doesn't bleed for you. A date doesn't drag you out of bed when you don't feel like moving. You do. The trap is how comfortable it feels to wait. Because waiting lets you feel like you're doing something when in reality you're doing nothing. I'm just holding out for that day. I'm preparing for the right time. That's the excuse. Waiting is the disguise laziness wears. And people love it because it lets them off the hook. If the date is in charge, then they're not to blame when nothing changes. They can point to the day and say, "It wasn't meant to be," instead of admitting they never lifted a finger. That's why it's so dangerous to give power to dates. They become cages you willingly lock yourself in. And let's not forget how easy it is to manipulate someone who believes in a date. Promise them salvation on a Saturday. Whisper that everything will align on a certain day, and you can control their mind. You don't even need chains, don't need threats, don't need weapons. Just give them a date and watch them wait. Watch them behave. Watch them stay still. Watch them obey, because in their heads, the rescue is coming. It's like giving candy to a child. You keep them quiet by dangling a sweet tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Real power has never belonged to the calendar. History wasn't changed by someone staring at a page and counting down. It was changed by those who couldn't wait, who acted in the messy middle of things, who broke through on ordinary, unremarkable days. Days nobody circled, nobody celebrated, nobody marked. The world turns on actions taken when nobody was watching. And those who understand that laugh at the ones still waiting, still believing in dates like they're prophecies. You see, dates are illusions. They look solid, they look official, but they're just smoke. What you do with them, that's real. If you spend it waiting, the day dissolves into nothing. If you spend it acting, the day becomes legendary. That's the irony. The date never had power, but your action can give it meaning. A random Tuesday can become the day everything shifted, not because it was written, but because you decided it would be. That's the secret nobody wants to face. It was never about Saturday or the 23rd or August. It was always about you. And maybe that's why people cling to dates so desperately. Because if they admit the truth, then all the waiting, all the excuses, all the wasted time was their choice. Not fate, not bad luck, not the wrong date. It was them. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's easier to keep blaming the calendar, easier to believe in the illusion that one magical day will finally deliver the life they've been too afraid to create. But deep down they know the date will pass, and they'll be left with nothing but their own reflection staring back at them. Believing in a marked day makes you passive. That's the trick, isn't it? You think you're preparing. You think you're building momentum. But really you're sitting still with your hands tied behind your back, waiting for something that was never promised to you. A date becomes a drug, and like all drugs, it numbs you. It gives you this little rush of comfort, this illusion that you're doing something by just waiting. But you're not moving. You're not fighting. You're not growing. You're waiting for the universe to do your job for you. And that's the cruelest kind of prison, one that feels like hope. Look at how it works. Somebody tells you on that day, everything will shift, and you believe it. You start pacing around like a caged animal counting down the days, eyes glued to the clock, and every tick makes you weaker. You stop acting because you think acting isn't necessary. Why bother? The date will take care of it, right? You put your faith in the promise of a day instead of the strength inside your own hands. And when you stop acting, you rot. Not because of failure, not because of loss, but because you surrendered without even realizing it. That's the poison of passivity. And passivity feels safe, doesn't it? No risks, no steps into the unknown, no messy failures to clean up after. You can tell yourself you're being patient, you're being wise, you're waiting for the right moment. But patience without movement is just paralysis dressed up in pretty words. You don't want to admit it, so you hide it under phrases like timing and destiny. But destiny doesn't respect the passive. Destiny favors the ones who break through walls while everyone else is still sitting on the floor, staring at the calendar. Think of all the people who've wasted their lives this way, marking dates, circling days on calendars, waiting for magic to knock on their door. They tell themselves, when I graduate, then I'll start. When I get that promotion, then I'll be free. When I hit 30, I'll reinvent myself. When the 23rd comes, my breakthrough will arrive. And then the day comes, passes, and nothing happens. And because they've trained themselves to be passive, they just mark the next day. They push the illusion further down the line, and they keep waiting. It's a cycle of paralysis that eats years. You can lose your entire life waiting for a marked day to save you. The real trap is how believing in a date strips you of responsibility. If the day is in charge, then you don't have to be. If the breakthrough depends on a Saturday, then you can relax, right? You can sit back, keep your hands clean, and wait. That way, if nothing changes, you can blame the date instead of yourself. It's easier to blame the calendar than to face the mirror. People love easy lies. They swallow them whole because the truth, that their own passivity is the problem, tastes too bitter. And here's the twisted irony: by believing in the date, by waiting, you actually kill the very thing you're waiting for. You suffocate it with your stillness. Because winds don't just land in your lap. They're born from friction, from fire, from movement. They come from stumbling forward, even when you don't know where you're going. But when you're passive, when you believe that waiting is enough, you cut yourself off from the chaos that creates breakthroughs. You strangle your own future with your silence. It's funny in a sick sort of way. People sit around saying, "I'm waiting for the right time," as if time cares about them, as if the world pauses for their comfort. Time isn't on your side. It keeps moving whether you do or not. And every second, you sit there waiting for a date. Time is dragging you further away from the life you could have built. That's the joke you don't see until it's too late. By being passive, you think you're preserving yourself, but really you're decaying. You're rusting in place while life storms ahead without you. Believing in a marked day makes you a spectator in your own life. You sit in the stands, waiting for the game to unfold, while your chance to play slips away. You don't see that the field was always open, that you could have stepped onto it any moment you wanted. But no, you sat there, obedient, waiting for the whistle, waiting for permission that was never coming. And when the whistle finally blows, you realize it was never for you. It was for those who were already playing, those who didn't wait, those who never gave their power to a date on a page. Traps are built with promises, not chains. That's the beauty of it. Nobody needs to drag you kicking and screaming into a cage when they can get you to walk in smiling. All it takes is a whisper, a suggestion that something better is just around the corner. They don't lock you up. They hand you hope, shiny and golden, and you clasp it so tight that you never realize it's the shackle. You think chains are metal and cold, but the real ones, they're soft, warm, invisible. They feel good at first. That's why they work. A chain hurts when it wraps around your wrist. You notice it, you fight it. But a promise slides right in. It strokes your ego. It tells you, "You're special, just wait. It's coming." And you believe it because you want to. Because humans are addicted to the idea that life owes them something sweet after all the bitter. You swallow that promise like candy, and once it's inside you, it starts to rot you from within. No bars, no padlocks, just the slow poisoning of expectation. And while you wait for the promise to bloom, the world keeps moving, and you stay frozen, still staring at the gift that never arrives. The cruel part is how easy it is to sell promises. Anyone can do it. Leaders, lovers, bosses, strangers, they know exactly what string to pull. Stay loyal and I'll reward you. Work hard and one day I'll promote you. Wait for me and I'll love you. All sugar, coded words that sound like salvation. You hear them and you relax. You lower your guard. You stop demanding. Stop questioning. Stop moving. Because you've been fed just enough hope to keep you docile. You don't even realize you've been caught. Because how could something that feels so good be a trap? That's how perfect the design is. And promises don't even need to be real to work. They just need to be believable enough to soothe your impatience. That's the sick genius of it. If you were told the truth, that nothing is coming, you'd get up, you'd fight, you'd move. But because the promise exists, you stay put. You starve in place because you've been told the feast is on its way. You don't dare go hunt for food. Because what if you leave right before the banquet arrives? So you stay wasting away, keeping yourself chained to a lie out of fear of missing the lie's reward. That's not captivity by force, it's captivity by faith. Most people don't want to admit they're trapped because that would mean admitting they were fooled, and pride won't let them face that. So they double down, clinging to the promise even harder. It has to be real, they tell themselves. It's taking longer, but it'll happen. I just have to wait a little more. The longer they wait, the deeper the chains sink in, and the deeper they sink, the harder it becomes to let go, until one day they're too weak to even move, too drained to even want freedom. All because of a few sweet words whispered at the right time. You want to see the true power of a promise? Watch a crowd. Watch how one sentence can hold thousands in line. Not because there are guards pointing guns at them, but because they've been given something to believe in. They'll police themselves. They'll silence their doubts. They'll keep each other in check, all for a promise that may never come true. That's efficiency. That's control without chains, control without effort. Give people hope, and they'll shackle themselves with it. And the ugliest truth of all, sometimes the people who hand you promises aren't even liars. Sometimes they believe it themselves. They've been caught in the same trap, passing it down like a disease. Parents promising kids a better future. bosses promising workers success, lovers promising each other forever. They're not villains, they're victims too. Victims who learned to live inside their chains so long they can't even see them anymore. And when you can't see your own prison, you'll invite others inside, thinking you're offering them shelter. That's how the cycle spreads. It's funny, isn't it? People spend their lives terrified of cages, terrified of shackles, terrified of anyone stripping away their freedom. But the easiest way to take freedom isn't to fight for it. It's to get someone to hand it over willingly. All it takes is the right words, dripping with just enough hope, just enough sweetness, to make surrender feel like choice. And once you've given it up, once you've traded your movement for the comfort of a promise, you don't need bars to keep you locked in. You'll do it to yourself, smiling the whole time. Waiting is the slowest form of surrender. It feels harmless, doesn't it? Just sitting there, hands folded, eyes fixed on some shining tomorrow. No chains, no blood, no violence. Just waiting. You tell yourself you're being patient, that patience is a virtue, that the reward comes to those who can hold out the longest. But deep down, you know the truth. Waiting isn't patience. It's paralysis dressed up as discipline. It's the art of doing nothing while convincing yourself you're doing something noble. Think about it. When you wait, you give your power away. You hand the wheel over to something outside yourself and sit in the back seat, hoping it'll take you somewhere worth going. You stop steering, stop pushing, stop creating because you're waiting for some invisible hand to deliver. And the cruelest trick, the world owes you nothing. The world doesn't pause just because you decided to sit still. It keeps spinning, devouring, reshaping. While you wait, the clock eats you alive. Every tick is a piece of you that will never come back. They love when you wait. Oh, they adore it. The system, the leaders, the people who want you quiet and compliant. Waiting is their greatest weapon, because a waiting crowd is a harmless crowd. A waiting worker is a cheap worker. A waiting dreamer is a dead dreamer. You're not fighting, not questioning, not rebelling. You're sitting there, whispering to yourself, soon, any day now, just a little longer. They know you'll wither before that. Soon ever arrives, and you'll even call your decay patience, as if rotting slowly makes the grave any softer. Tomorrow, That word has a way of fooling people, makes them think they've got time, that they can relax tonight, sleep easy, and deal with whatever comes later. But sometimes tomorrow isn't just another day. It's a loaded gun waiting for its turn to go off. And the funny thing about tragedy is, it doesn't send you a polite invitation. It doesn't knock. It kicks the door in smiling, while you're still in your pajamas. You think tragedy knocks politely. No, it kicks the door in when you're mid-sentence, mid-bite, mid-laugh. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or some theatrical drum roll. It just arrives. One moment you're sipping coffee, scrolling through nothing important, and the next moment the world tilts in a way you can't tilt it back. And that's the part people never get. They imagine there's always going to be a sign, some dark cloud forming, some gut feeling. But no, most of the time, it's a perfectly normal day until it isn't. You don't see the car coming until it's already through the intersection. You don't notice the crack in the floor until you've fallen straight through it. People love to believe they'll sense it, that their instincts will whisper, "Fearful, something's wrong," but instincts, they're just another word for hope wearing a disguise. You'll convince yourself you've got more time. Everyone does. That's why tragedy feels like being slapped by a hand you never saw moving. You didn't brace yourself. You didn't even think you needed to. And in that instant, one instant, you realize how fragile every little piece of your life really is. Funny thing is, when you look back at the moments before it hit, they feel ridiculous. You were worried about a text, a bill, some stupid argument that won't matter in the ashes. And you'd give anything to go back and shake that version of yourself and scream, look around, breathe it in. Because this is the last time it will ever be like this. But you can't. Nobody can. The before is always untouchable. And here's the part that makes people squirm. Tragedy doesn't care if you're a saint or a snake. Doesn't matter how kind you've been, how many people you've helped, or how many prayers you've whispered. It comes for the good, the bad, and the in-between with the same cold hand, because it isn't personal. It's just inevitable, like gravity. And you can curse it, fight it, bargain with it, but it never changes its mind. Most of you keep your eyes glued to the ground, pretending you can't see the horizon, pretending that If you keep busy enough, it won't happen today. You hide in routines, in the safe little cages you built. But those walls, they're made of paper when tragedy decides to blow through. That's when you learn how exposed you really are. That's when you finally feel the difference between living and just passing the time until it's your turn. And the cruelest part, by the time you see it coming, by the time you even as register that shadow creeping toward you, it's already too late to move. You stand there, frozen, trying to make sense of the shape of it, when really you should have been moving long before you saw it at all. People think the scariest part is the moment it hits. But no, the real horror is in the waiting. That silent stretch of time when you know something's wrong, but you can't see it yet. It's like hearing a ticking sound in the walls, soft, steady, patient, and pretending it's nothing, while deep down, you know it's counting down to something you won't like. That's the game, the gap between knowing and seeing. You feel it in your chest, like a rope tightening slowly, and every second you ignore it, it gets harder to breathe. You try to fill the air with noise. Work, distractions, chatter. Anything to drown out the quiet hum of dread. But dread's clever. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It seeps through cracks in your thoughts, dripping in at 3 a.m. when the world's asleep. And in those hours, you can't hide. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince yourself you're just tired, just stressed, when really you're bracing for the thing you can't name yet. The human mind is funny. It wants answers so badly. It'll start inventing them just to keep itself from collapsing. You'll tell yourself it's just bad luck, just a rough patch, just something small that will pass. You'll bargain with the unknown, like making promises to shadows will somehow keep them from swallowing you. But shadows don't make deals. They don't care about your promises. They keep moving, stretching longer and darker until they cover everything. And here's the twist. The longer you wait, the less real the threat starts to feel. That's the dangerous part. You get used to the hum, the tension. It becomes normal. You stop looking over your shoulder because you convince yourself there's nothing there anymore. But that's exactly when it strikes. When you're lulled into thinking you've outrun it. When you let your guard down, thinking the worst has already passed. It's not a coincidence. Life doesn't just forget to hurt you. It waits. It watches for the moment your hands are empty, when your back is turned. Because when you're ready, when you're tense, you can fight, you can resist. But when you've gone soft, when you've convinced yourself you're safe, that's when the blow breaks you clean in half. You can feel it building in the smallest ways. Conversations get shorter. Smiles get thinner. The room feels colder for no reason you can explain. But you shrug it off, because what's the alternative? Admit you can feel the storm in your bones and have everyone call you paranoid. No. You smile, you laugh, you play along, hoping you're wrong. That's the trick, hoping you're wrong, but you're not. You never were. Something's been crawling toward you this whole time, and the only reason it hasn't reached you yet is because it enjoys the crawl. It enjoys the way you twitch at the sound of footsteps, the way you glance over your shoulder in empty streets. It enjoys the way you try to pretend you're not afraid. And maybe that's the worst part, not the thing itself, but the performance you put on while waiting for it to arrive. People talk about trust like it's this warm, glowing thing, something you build brick by brick until it's strong enough to stand forever. But here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Trust is a glass wall. Looks solid, feels safe, but all it takes is the right hit at the right angle, and it shatters into 1,000 pieces you can't put back together. You can sweep it up, glue it, tape it, but it's never the same. Every time you look at it, you'll see the cracks. The funny part, we hand people the hammer ourselves. We give them access to the fragile parts of us, the places no one else sees, and we do it smiling. Why? Because we want to believe someone can be different. We want to think there's a person out there who won't swing when they get the chance. That's the gamble. Every single time you trust, you're betting your heart against human nature. And most people lose. See? Betrayal isn't always loud. It's not always some big dramatic knife in the back. Sometimes it's a slow leak. A little truth left out here. A small lie tucked in there. A shift in tone, a missed call. An excuse that doesn't feel quite right. The kind of tiny cuts you barely notice until you're bleeding all over the floor. By then, you're too dizzy to remember where it started. And here's the trick with people. They don't always mean to break you. Sometimes they step on your trust without even realizing it. like someone crushing glass underfoot in the dark. They didn't see it. They didn't think. They just moved the wrong way. And now the shards are in your skin. Doesn't matter if they meant it or not. You still bleed. It changes you, makes you walk differently. You start keeping your distance, not because you want to, but because you've learned what happens when you let someone too close. You flinch when people reach for you, even when they're reaching to help. That's the part no one warns you about. Once you've been shattered, even kindness feels dangerous. But there's something else about trust that people forget. Once it's gone, it's not just about the person who broke it. It's about everyone after them. The next person pays for damage they didn't cause. You measure their words, watch their eyes, test their patience, not because they've done anything wrong, but because someone else taught you the cost of believing too quickly. They don't even know they're being judged, but they are. Every second. And maybe you start to like it that way. You keep the wall up, not because you need to, but because there's a strange kind of safety in the distance. You learn to survive on half-truths and polite smiles. You become the one holding the hammer now, deciding who gets near the glass. And deep down, you know the answer is almost no one. Because the glass may look whole again, but you can feel every fracture. You know exactly how fragile it still is. People like to think strength is loud. Muscles shouting, standing tall. Breaking through walls like some hero in a cheap comic book. But real strength, it's quiet. It's the kind you build when nobody's watching. When every bone in your body is telling you to give up, and you don't. That's the strength that matters. The kind that's earned in the dark, not handed to you in the light. There's a moment, a breaking point. Everyone's got one. That instant where life decides it's going to see just how much weight you can carry before you crumble. Some people think they'll never reach it until they do, and then they realize it's not the end. That's the real test. Not the moment you break, but what you do right after. Will you stay there on the floor, or will you drag yourself up with blood in your mouth and fire in your eyes? See, here's the thing nobody tells you. The world isn't fair. It doesn't care about how good you are, or how much you've suffered, or how many times you've been almost there. It'll keep hitting you over and over until you either stop moving or learn to take the hit without falling. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you stop waiting for the rules to change, the sooner you actually start playing the game. The quiet strength isn't about winning every fight. It's about still being here after you've lost a few. It's waking up every morning knowing today might be worse than yesterday and still stepping forward anyway. That's not optimism. That's not hope. That's survival. The kind of survival that turns into a weapon if you let it. Because once you've been through enough, you realize pain stops being something to fear. It becomes something you can use. Most people run from pain. You take it, you hold it. You let it burn through you until it can't burn anymore. You wear it like armor. And suddenly, the things that used to hurt, you don't get through the same way. Not because you're numb, but because you've grown harder, sharper. You've learned the difference between pain that breaks you and pain that shapes you. And you choose to be shaped. But there's a price to that. Strength built in silence comes with a kind of loneliness. No one sees the battles you fight when the lights are off. They only see the scars afterward. And they think those scars are just decoration. They don't understand the nights you've spent wrestling with yourself. The mornings you've dragged your body out of bed when every part of you screamed not to. And maybe you like it that way. Maybe you prefer that no one knows because it's yours. The truth is, nobody hands out medals for surviving. You don't get applause for showing up when you wanted to disappear. There's no cheering crowd for the days you fought a war in your head and still managed to smile in public. That's fine. Let them think it's easy. Let them think you've always been this strong. You and I know the truth. Strength isn't given, it's forged. And the forge isn't a place for comfort. It's a place for heat, for pressure, for breaking and remaking until you can't be broken the same way again. The dangerous thing about that kind of strength is that once you have it, people expect it from you all the time. They forget you're still human. They think you can take anything, so they pile on more. And maybe you do take it. Maybe you carry more than you should, because part of you is afraid of what will happen if you stop. That's the trap. You start thinking you're only worth something if you're unbreakable. But deep down, you know better. You've already broken before. And here you are.